Trapped by Michael Northrop, Chapter 11. The snow was a dull white against the glass by the time Pete woke up. The girls were next, and then Les. Elijah drifted back into the fold, and there we were, just like last night, 7 kids on our own, hanging out in a little cluster. All dressed up and nowhere to go, said Jason. We were still bundled up in the extra clothes we'd worn to sleep. I walked over to my backpack and put my hat in it. It wasn't that cold yet, maybe 55, and I wanted to have something in reserve. My backpack was against the wall where we'd slept, and now that we were up, we all drifted away from that area. I guess we were keeping it separate. It was the bedroom. Now we were all standing in the living room, closer to the main doors. I walked back to the group thinking we'd need a new house soon. People were walking up to the glass and standing next to it. They were trying to measure its height based on their own. Best guess, a little over 8 feet. I didn't have the heart to tell them it had been a little under 8 feet half an hour ago. It wouldn't be long before there was no space for light to come in at all. Everyone with a phone tried it. When they got nothing, they stood up against the glass and raised their phones above snow level. Krista had to stand on tiptoes. There was absolutely no signal now. In one sense, it was just more of the same, but in another sense, it was kind of shocking. It was morning now. It seemed like things should be reset, rebooted. What we didn't know, what we had no way of knowing at the time, was that something had happened overnight. Up on the mountain at the height of the storm, in every sense, the cell tower had been knocked out. We just sort of stood around for a while. No one was really sure what to do, apart from swear and kick the wall. At first, the morning got brighter as the sun climbed higher behind the heavy clouds. But then it started getting darker again as the gap at the top of the windows continued to fill with snow. I think we all knew we'd need to move to another part of the school. The light seemed weird and unreal, but everything else seemed strangely clear to me. We were on our own, and we were going to be that way for a while. Gosel hadn't come back. He'd found shelter, or, well, he hadn't. The power was out. The phones were dead. The school was losing heat, and it was still snowing. Apart from that, everything was great. I've got to take a leak, Jason was saying. Well, hurry up, said Pete. I've got to drop one. The ground rules had been established last night. One person in the bathroom at a time in order to avoid pissing on each other's feet or brushing against something you shouldn't. There's only so fast I can drain it in the dark, said Jason. I'm serious, man, said Pete. I'm turtling, whatever that means. It's probably something really unpleasant. I laughed, just because that's such a nasty word, turtling. When the turd starts poking its head out, and if you're thinking that's not the kind of thing Pete would say around Julie, you're right. The girls were in their own little group. We were clustered together loosely, in groups of 1s, 2s, and 3s. No teachers, no classes, but the cliches but the cliques remained. We were in little groups drifting inside a larger one. We were like the organs in an amoeba, like the mitochondria, which are the sites of energy production through ATP. I was fairly sure we would be having that biology test on Friday. Krista and Julie were down by the drinking fountain. One of them had a toothbrush and toothpaste, and they were taking turns with it. I didn't know a single guy who would bring a toothbrush to school, but chicks were different. I ran my finger along my teeth to see if I still had any Oreo bits in there. Les was on his own, acting like he didn't care that none of his delinquent buddies were here. All I could say to that was, thank the Lord. Les was on his own. Les on his own was bad news, but he'd been sort of okay so far. There were three of us, all sophomore guys, all friends. We were a natural group and we outnumbered him. But even then, we gave him his space and laughed at the few lame jokes he made. Elijah was on his own too, but then he always was. He was hanging out at the far edge of things, like Pluto on those maps of the solar system, just watching, not even really a planet. It is a planet. He was always watching like that, like there was something sort of amusing going on. He was doing it now. Maybe there was something funny about all this, but I didn't see it. Oh man, said Pete. Just go to the second floor, I said. There were bathrooms on either end of the second floor in the main building. And since they were on either end of the floor, they had windows. At least you'll be able to see to wipe. Yeah, he said, good idea. He waddled toward the end of the hall, and I walked over to the drinking fountain to see if I could score some toothpaste. Proper dental hygiene was honestly the least of my problems, but it seemed like one I could do something about. Just a dab of their Aquafresh on my fingertips and a few seconds at the fountain. Then we'd have to move on to the bigger problem, the one we hadn't talked much about yet. I couldn't ignore it now, though. I felt hollow, almost a little sick. My body was telling me it was time to eat. My stomach had been growling for as long as I'd been up. We'd missed dinner last night, and now we were missing breakfast. We'd need food soon. There were 7 of us. We'd need a lot of it.